Welcome to Starbound's second channel. My name is Veronica and I'll be your narrator today. But before we get into today's story, please check below to see if you've subscribed to our channel. It's 100% free and just allows our stories to pop up on your feed more often. General Croc stood inside the dark and shady main room of Planet Pear and watched as the red light dot on the wide screen in front of him, representing the jungle planet, was blinking. A sign that was meant to be there to show everyone that this planet must be avoided at all costs. His yellow eyes were widened as he looked at it, and his lips were slightly open with a wide grin, showing more attraction than fear. As he seemed like he was daydreaming, the main door suddenly opened, making a sound so loud, breaking through the entire room because of its huge size and rough texture, giving him a momentary shock and making him snap his head up. Chief Pearty got in, walking fast as if someone was chasing him. His jaw was tightened, his fists were clenched, and his big green eyes were narrowed. General Croc noticed him and leaned back. His grin remained, but now it was different, showing sarcasm and readiness rather than attraction. Pearty's three-legged steps echoed through the room as he got up the stairs that led to where Croc stood. With every step, tension was becoming more and more evident. When Pearty got in front of Croc, he abruptly grabbed him by the shoulders. His 8-fingered grip was firm. He looked him in the eyes with what was a mix of anger, despair, and frustration, and said, "Are you really going to do this? Are you that stupid?" Croc's grin faded, his yellow eyes squinting slightly as if weighing the uncertainty of what was ahead. But just as quickly, he regained his focus, his expression hardening into the same unshakable confidence that had carried him through countless battles. He lifted his 6-fingered but huge palms to take Pearty's hands off his shoulders. The grab was rough, almost violent. "My friend, I'll take my tribe and head to this so-called dangerous jungle. I'll see for myself if what we've heard is true. And we could also find some breakthrough materials for our ships and technological evolution. And there's nothing you can do about it. Now, don't ever talk to me like that again, all right?" Pearty's eye contact breaks for a moment. His stance softens, and he lifts his palms up. "I'm just worried about you. You're the strongest tribe we have. We don't want to lose you out there." Croc's gaze never faded. "You won't. We have gone through wars and diseases. A jungle won't extinguish us. Now get out of here. Our ships are getting ready and we'll leave in a moment." "Fine, my friend. I just wanted to have a word with you, in case you're thinking of changing your mind. But looks like you're not. May Galaxy's gods be with you. You'll need them," Pearty said before leaving. Just after that, the thin transparent device on Croc's blue forearm got a signal, showing him that the ships were ready for takeoff. He walked out of the room, his steps smooth because of the 4 legs that are soft on the bottom and rough on the front and back, allowing him to move almost unnoticed and fight with an iron-like power if needed. He arrived at the ships, and all the tribes had gathered on the left and right of them. Their eyes were wide open, not as a sign of admiration, but more as a sign of genuine shock and concern behind Pear's cloudy atmosphere. He told everyone that when they return, they'll show that there is nothing their tribe can't deal with. Right after that, he and his best soldiers got inside the ships and started heading toward the jungle planet. On the way there, Croc sat on the front and rested his wide head on his knuckles while observing all the planets and stars they were passing by, an expression that showed he was skeptical, confident and sure, but somewhat doubtful at the same time. His stance changed the moment they started getting closer to the jungle planet. He pulled his head slightly back, lowered his hand, and his pupils got wider in an attempt to zoom in and take in as much visual information as possible to understand what was going on down there. Even from a distance, it was different than anything they had ever seen. The vegetation there was so dense that they couldn't see any form of life that lived down on the ground yet. They could only see tall green and yellow plants with huge leaves. When they entered the atmosphere, their ship started malfunctioning. The handling started being hard and shaky, and the screen in front of the driver pointed toward activating the water shields. And that's what they did. In a few seconds, the ship started behaving as it did throughout the entire journey, normally. The rain and dampness that were present to an extreme extent there wasn't what they were used to, but they were more than prepared for it. With the ship's steadiness back in place, they got very close to the ground, just above the plantation, and they noticed movements on the ground, but nothing that seemed too dangerous yet. They started looking for an expanse, at least big enough to land the ship, and after 2 hours of wandering, they finally found it. They got out and positioned themselves strategically. Croc stood in the front as always, leading them all. For the first time, after the battle from which he gained the trademark scar he had across his left cheek, a sign of uncertainty was evident. Not enough to make him look scared, but seemed more prepared than usual. His tribe's warriors were behind him. They made a circle to protect their scientists, ferocious fighters too, but whose main purpose was technological evolution, so they had their forearms transparent devices ready to capture information. They started walking inside the dense jungle. The plants weren't very different than the others they'd seen, but were bigger, wetter, and very close to one another. Their nostrils started getting visibly wider, attracted by a magnetic, strange scent that was evident in the air, a mix of sweetness and fertility. And the moisture left a signature taste on each of their lips. But until now, they didn't spot any of the movements they saw earlier inside their ships. There was silence that didn't help. It only made an eerie anxiety grow more and more inside of Croc's. But he had learned over his years of existence to hide such feelings that made him seem weak. Then suddenly, they heard a creaking on their right side. Their posture immediately froze, and they got into defense mode. They raised their transparent left forearms devices to form a protective shell, and raised their energetic blue and green colored blades with their right palm, getting ready for a potential attack. It all happened instinctively and very quickly. They had done it so many times that it was now a built-in habit. And from the bushes, a small, colorful creature emerged. It was crawling on the ground smoothly without any legs, slow but steady, leaving a light mark of moisture behind. It seemed unbothered by Crocs and his tribe, stupid almost, with 2 very small eyes being focused on a yellow plant next to the scientists, who seemed excited but also scared. The numerous shining colors it had coming out of its skin, purple, blue, pink, black, and gold, indicated to them that it was poisonous. At least that was a pattern they had observed over the years. But they had the black, flexible but rough suits on them, protecting them from anything they touched. Crocs ordered one of them to lift it, but he looked hesitant for a moment, and just when he was about to grab it, Crocs interrupted him. "Stop, my bad. I shouldn't ask you to do this. Coming here was my idea after all. Let me hold it first to make sure it's okay." The scientist nodded, and Crocs got in front of the small creature, looked at it for a moment, as if weighing the decision he was about to make. Then he bent down and carefully placed it on his palm. He kept staring at it, looking at its unique shape and the colors coming out of it, and then smiled. Satisfied that everything seemed to be okay before he passed it over, the scientist scanned it with his device, then gently placed it down again. Then they kept moving. The deeper they got inside the jungle, the more of those same creatures started being spotted. It was many of them. Some were resting, others were eating this yellow plant they seemed to be attracted to. Croc started being overly confident. His demeanor showed he had almost convinced himself that what they had heard about this planet was simply rumors. But then, he heard something, a sound of someone falling down on the ground. He looked back to see a horrifying image. One of his warriors was lying down on the ground. His body's flesh was dissolving and slowly disappeared until there was nothing left on him but bones. He and everyone who was around wanted to help him, but couldn't understand what was going on. Crocs maintained his calmness, but now his stance projected that his confidence wasn't as strong as it was a few seconds ago. They were all puzzled, and some of them started getting scared. What was that? They couldn't explain it. Then Crocs did what he was voted to become his tribe's general for. He thought. He started thinking of things they might have missed. The creature they encountered earlier couldn't have made the damage. The falling warrior didn't even get close to it. But it was strange, very different than anything they had ever seen. So he assumed every other creature that exists there is the same way. Strange. Something there could be so unknown and different that was right in front of their eyes, but they didn't even notice. So first, he told everyone to regain their courage and take their positions. Nothing could be done for the warrior. He was gone. And they had learned to leave any dead behind when death takes place far from their home. It cost precious time to carry him and take him back. A cold act, but necessary in such times. Then he told them to follow his lead and mimic the way he walked. He moved more slowly this time, and paid close attention to any minimal movement he spotted with his peripheral vision. A few moments later, he saw some leaves moving on his left. He turned his head to see what was going on, but nothing seemed to be there. He wasn't convinced, though, so he went closer. And just when he had his eyes at the same height as the leaves and was close enough to look at it in detail, he saw it. A perfectly camouflaged creature, slightly bigger in size than the other. It jumped from those yellow leaves to another green plant. It had 4 short legs and a pointy head with 4 different spikes, bigger than someone would expect compared to its overall size. The moment it landed on the green plant, it turned green itself and matched the plant's tone and texture perfectly. Crocs's eyes were widened now. His whole posture indicated momentary shock, and after many years, he didn't trust his instinct. He was skeptical, very skeptical indeed, so he addressed whom he trusted the most, Riss, seeking his advice. "What do you think, brother? Should we examine it?" Riss looked calmer compared to the others, but still, he was visibly anxious. "I wouldn't do it if I were you. I don't want to disrespect you, but look what happened to Kov. We don't know what's going on here." Crocs thought of it for a moment and then nodded. "You're right. Let's move on and stay careful." He then ordered his scientists to scan this creature from a distance, and then they continued further into the jungle. Things wouldn't stay peaceful for much longer, though. Shortly after, a scientist from behind flinched. Crocs then looked behind him once more and saw the scientist looking down at his feet, terrified. And there it was. A camouflaged creature like the one they encountered on the plants earlier was there on the ground, and the scientist had stepped on it. Crocs approached, pulled his blade out, and immediately killed it. Then he rested his 6-fingered palm on his shoulder before asking him, "How do you feel? Are you okay?" The scientist didn't manage to finish the sentence and grabbed his own neck with his palm while his mouth opened and his eyes started darkening. Then he kneeled and seemed like he couldn't breathe, as if he was suffocating. Once again, everyone was puzzled. Crocs touched his chest in a desperate attempt to help, but he didn't really know what he was doing. He had never seen anything like that. In a few blinks of an eye, he was gone too. Crocs then got himself up, closed his eyes to accept what had just happened, but didn't let his feelings sink in. He ordered everyone to keep moving, but not with normal steps. To shuffle their feet this time, so that if a creature like this is on the ground and can't be seen, to be dragged away and not stepped on. Everyone complied, and they went on with their journey. Moisture got more and more tense as they went deeper into the jungle. with drops of water now being visible on their rough foreheads, and some of them getting inside their mouth. They didn't mind it. This water was sweeter and felt thicker in texture than the one they were used to, and they enjoyed it. Plants were getting bigger too, taller and thicker, which made visibility harder for them. Now they couldn't see far from them with much clarity, despite their yellow eyes' expert sight. They could only clearly see what was very close to them, but the environment around them looked calm and peaceful, and things looked like they were under control. But that didn't last long. Croc stopped abruptly. His expression shifted to a mix of curiosity and fear as he noticed something huge that seemed like a rock at first, but then started moving. The others saw it too, and got their shields and blades ready while getting closer. It was the weirdest creature of all, bigger than them, 10 feet tall, with pointy rocky edges all over its body, and 2 black eyes that seemed like they were looking deep inside each and every one of their souls. Brown in color, with 2 very short legs, no arms, and a strange-looking closed mouth. It was almost like a huge living stone. They were cautious and moved carefully, but their blades were strong and were able to cut through very tough textures, so they weren't afraid to fight if needed. The moment they got in front of it, it revealed a spiky arm from inside its body, and with great speed, it cut through the shield and body of the warrior that was next to Croc's, killing him like it was nothing. Crocs quickly tried to push his blade inside of it, but it seemed pointless. The creature didn't look like it was in any pain, and with the same speed as before, it tried to kill Crocs. But he was ready. He managed to avoid it, but not without it ripping a small piece out of Croc's chest and ruining his suit. Crocs now didn't have a suit to protect him, but he was brave. He tried to kill it again, went from the side and targeted one of its big eyes this time. The beast made a strange sound, as if it were in pain while its eye was bleeding. That was it. That was its weakness. But this only led to it getting madder. It revealed another spiky arm, and it got both of them inside the 2 warriors that were in front of it, killing them both. One scientist then tried to target its eyes again. He ran quickly, jumped, and the moment his blade was about to find the eye, the beast did it again, killing the scientist while he was in the air, and everyone slightly backed up so they weren't close to it. Crocs noticed its arms were really fast, but its body wasn't. It couldn't walk fast, but if you were close to it, you were doomed. It had a weakness, though, or that was what it seemed, because the eye stopped bleeding. It was as if it had already healed. Crocs then started thinking, and Riss interrupted him. "Brother, I don't want to play boss here, but shouldn't we leave? We already lost 4 of them. Is it really worth it?" Crocs wanted to admit Riss was right, but his stubbornness and pride didn't let him. There must be a way. Riss hesitated, but then replied, knowing he's the only one who could change Crocs' mind. "Brother, isn't this enough already? You want more of it?" Crocs thought of it for a moment, and as much as he didn't want to, he realized he was responsible for everyone dying there, so he ordered them to keep moving and leave the beast on its own. With careful movements, they started leaving. The beast didn't hurt the first ones that passed by it, and it looked like it was done, but it wasn't. It was just a decoy to make them believe it didn't want more trouble, and it suddenly killed one more scientist who was on the back. Everyone got both mad and scared, but they knew they couldn't do anything, so they kept moving. The last time Crocs returned his head to see the beast, it had started eating the fallen warriors and scientists it had killed, eating their heads first, and then swallowing their whole bodies. It was terrifying, but they all had to wave it off and keep moving. The shock wasn't gone yet, and Riss stopped moving, and his mouth slightly opened as he gestured behind a big green plant. Crocs looked there and saw 2 red eyes lurking in the distance, staring at them. They were smaller than the rocky beasts they had just encountered, but scarier. They were more alive, more ready, and it was as if they were speaking with them, telling them they're all doomed. Crocs whispered to everyone to stay still, and as he looked left and right of him, he noticed many camouflaged creatures on the ground that they hadn't noticed before, quickly climbing up the tallest plant they could find next to them all at once. So did the colorful ones. They didn't climb, but they all tried to rush with their slow-moving bodies deep inside the jungle to hide. It was as if time froze, and there was an aura in the air that indicated danger was there, as if the king of the jungle arrived, and everyone made space. The eyes started moving and getting closer, but shrinking at the same time, as if they were trying to aim. Crocs and the others didn't move. They stayed there steadily and prepared with their blades raised. Crocs was already hurt and didn't have a shield anymore, so he was extra careful. And within a few moments, the creature made itself visible as it jumped from behind the plants and attacked Riss, tearing his whole head apart. It was as black as darkness itself, with 4 muscular legs and a long body, enough to be big, but not big enough to make it slow. And the same with its head. It was big enough to be able to cut huge pieces of flesh and had long fangs that looked like they could cut through anything, but small enough not to lose its balance. It was like nature had created the perfect predator, fast, strong, and with a tough skin like armor. The beast didn't stop at Riss. The moment it cut his head off, he jumped over a scientist doing the same thing. The warrior tried to attack it, but the beast quickly targeted his neck and killed him too. Crocs froze. His bravery and confidence were completely shattered. He had just seen his best friend die in a blink of an eye. The beast won't stop. It went on and killed another one, ripping his head off and throwing it on the ground mercilessly. Crocs then lost the last piece of calmness he had remained inside of him and ordered everyone to retreat. "Back to our ships!" he yelled, and they all started running, trying to save their lives. The beast wasn't done. It jumped over the back of one of the remaining scientists and killed him too, and then scanned around it to see what it had done, and looked like it judged it had enough food and didn't need more of it. So it started eating them. The scientists now left were only 4, and the warriors now left were only 11. When Crocs realized danger wasn't there anymore, he told everyone to stop running and move carefully, because he remembered all the other things that were in there. The camouflaged creature, the rocky beast, and he hadn't forgotten the one they lost first, the one whose flesh started rotting, and all that was left were bones, which was something they still couldn't explain. Crocs now felt something he hadn't felt since he was young: shame. Because his arrogance, which made him believe his tribe could deal with anything, and didn't listen to Chief Parity right before they made this trip, which led to a nightmare. And guilt, because he had just caused the death of some of his greatest scientists and warriors, and his best friend. He now didn't have anyone he could really trust, only people who had obeyed him because that was the law. As he was regretting, but also being cautious of everything around him, they heard something else from their left, but way different than the sounds they were used to inside the jungle. Not leaves or plants moving, not some weird grunt or sound a beast would make, but something completely different, something more familiar. It was like murmurs. They couldn't understand them, but it was as if conversations were going on. Crocs was surprised, not scared, more intrigued. This was the only sound they felt wasn't new to them, so he felt attracted to it and started following it. A warrior named Gret grabbed his shoulder abruptly, picking up some courage, and said to him, "Brother, are you sure? This might be a trick. Creatures here look intelligent. We can't afford to lose more men." Crocs paused and started considering it for a moment. He felt he was right. He had already made many mistakes, and his tribe needed him to be wise. But he was too intrigued and stubborn not to find out what was going on. So he made a middle ground choice. He ordered them to stay there, and he decided to listen to his instinct and take the risk alone. He told Gret to stay in charge while he was gone, and if they heard him screaming or it took him more than 15 minutes to return, to leave without him. They all complied, and he started walking through the plants. The murmuring started getting louder and louder with every step, and he started smelling something he couldn't exactly identify. It was like something was burning, but the scent wasn't bad. It slightly reminded him of the food they were eating back on their planet. At some point, he started catching some words. A phrase he heard very clearly was, "That tastes amazing." He was puzzled. That sounded too familiar. He realized it was definitely another tribe there. Intrigued and curious, he got very close and pushed some leaves out of the way to peek. That's when he saw what was going on. 7 humans were there. Their axes, swords, and 2 bows were beside them. No protective suits or armor, only bare clothes and some tents that looked like they were meant to be used for sleep. They made a fire using the plants there to roast a creature. Not a harmless or small one. The one that had red eyes and killed his best friend. He was shocked. He observed them eating pieces of it for a moment with his mouth slightly opened and his pupils widened. His mind couldn't process this scene. The humans hadn't noticed him yet and were just enjoying their meal, talking and laughing. He lowered the blade he had been holding up all this time to protect himself in case something went wrong, and revealed himself. He held his palms up to show he was peaceful. The humans were surprised at first, and talking stopped, and they all started staring at him seriously. But after a brief moment of awkward silence, one of them said, "Join us! This thing's so juicy you'll love it!" as he offered a piece of the roasted beast. Crocs didn't know how to respond. He only hesitantly took it and sat next to them. The humans started asking where he was from and how he ended up there, but Crocs was still shocked and didn't speak much. The humans didn't mind, though. They realized he was puzzled, so they left him alone and kept talking to each other. Croc slowly regained his focus, and the shock he had started fading away, so he tried out the piece the human gave him, and he liked it. It was very juicy indeed, with an alive aroma and a salty taste. He then thanked the humans and remembered that there was still an unexplained death, so he asked them about it. The humans told him it must have been one of the parasites. They said they stick themselves onto other skin and slowly absorb into them. Then they start eating them from the inside. And after this explanation, they all started laughing at how crazy this jungle was. Crocs was shocked again. How could they take this as a joke? Weren't they scared? He wanted to find out what was going on, and he asked them how they killed the beast and the reason they were there. They told him they used their bows for it, and they had plenty of arrows to kill many more of them, so they had food for weeks. They went camping to see some wildlife. They had gotten bored with the Earth's creatures and wanted to see something different. They then told him to stay. They had plenty of room inside their tents, and he was more than welcome. Crocs was trying to process what he had just witnessed and heard. He tried to speak, but words won't come out due to the confusion. So he got up and started walking away, telling them only 3 last words. "You are crazy." And then he left. While he was heading back, he had placed his 6-fingered palms on his temples, being skeptical and trying to understand whether his tribe wasn't as strong as he thought, or if humans were the strongest ones out there. When he reached his tribe, everyone was pleased to find out he was still alive. Then they asked him what was going on there. He couldn't let what he just saw come out of his mouth easily, so he stayed silent for a moment, and then he said the truth. It was a tribe that proved to be stronger and braver than they, but they didn't belong there. He said it was some friendly humans, and they left their own planet and visited this not for scientific purposes or to see how dangerous it was, but simply because they wanted to have fun. Everyone was puzzled, but Crocs didn't explain any further. He told them that if he tried to, it would become even more complicated. He was confused too, so he told them to start heading toward their ships, and that's what they did. They reached their ships and were lucky they had no more casualties on their way back. While they were traveling back to Pear, Crocs was still thinking. He went to this planet arrogant, trying to prove his worth, thinking he was wise and brave, but hiding the doubts he had inside of him. Little did he know, this trip was what would make him wise. And now he knew that neither were they the strongest tribe out there, nor should he underestimate the power of the unknown and the advice of the other tribes back in Pear. It made him humble, and he realized he needed that. Now he could lead his people with more wisdom. When they arrived on Pear, the other tribes quickly gathered around the ships. They started murmuring to each other, surprised because they had managed to return. Every other tribe they knew of that visited this planet never did. They were also intrigued to see what happened and if what they had heard about this jungle was real or just a myth. When the doors opened, they stopped talking, and everyone went quiet, observing them as they walked out of their ships to see what happened and if everyone had returned. They noticed many of them didn't, so Parity rushed into Crocs the moment he saw him and asked, "What happened?" Crocs closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and then exhaled slowly. He turned his head to face him, looked him deep into the eyes, and after a few moments of silence said, "You were right, but still, you know nothing."